Welcome back, Know It Alls. Thanks for listening to the show. And as always, give us some feedback about what we are doing so we can make sure you're having a good time listening to us.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Answers for Everything.
Welcome back, know-it-alls. So we got Charlie Ray on the end here. We were chatting earlier today, and it struck me as odd that he said he had like an event to go to tomorrow. And being a Canadian, I was like, oh, what are you doing? And then it crossed my mind, fuck, it's July 4th. That's a huge thing for you, right?
Well, it is. 4th of July has always been a tradition as a celebration of the birth of the country, the Declaration of Independence and all that. And despite the fact that many in the United States are tending to look down on it for whatever reason nowadays, I've always been traditionally very much a patriotic person.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with being patriotic. I think those people are probably thinking like, oh, it's a country built upon slavery. But I mean, it's hard to find a country that isn't built upon slavery. So just because you're celebrating a country doesn't mean you need to celebrate the negative things in that country. You can include all the good things in what you're celebrating, and then think about and learn your lesson and try to have resolve for the things that aren't positive about the beginnings of a country, right?
You're absolutely correct. I mean, I don't expect that the founding fathers of our country were perfect, just like I don't expect that any human being ever alive has ever been perfect. I mean, if you're going to tell me you could take a random, God, I should know this, how many founding fathers there were at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. If you were to take that number of random people from the United States today, do you think you'd have 100% perfection in them? No, I bet there's going to be plenty of them that are going to have skeletons in their closet. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and as far as I've considered, and the way I've always looked at it, is a country is a living, breathing thing. You get better and you improve and you go along as best you can. But I definitely don't think that trying to go back and find all the problems of the past is the best way to create a more inclusive future. I think it's definitely not the path to go on. And while one might acknowledge and want to do better and acknowledge that the people had flaws of the past, they are the basis of this country, and they are what allows the people who have dissent today to actually be able to speak their mind, and they don't give that any respect. That's kind of how I think. And the thing is that you have studied history much, or you know much about what happened. A lot of what happened around the founding of the country, they had to get the buy-in of the Southern colonies. And the Southern colonies, unfortunately, were a slave-owning society setup, from the agricultural setup to what they were based on. And if the United States wanted to have any shot at success of breaking away from England, they needed the support of those other colonies and the people there. And I don't think that it was anything other than a brokered compromise, which was later borne out by the as you got through the early 1800s on, that you got into the, where they said, okay, well, no more states will be added that are slave states, right? And
Yeah.
you had the whole situation, which I'm very familiar with local history, which was the battle between the border states of Missouri and Kansas, because Missouri was admitted to the Union as a slave state, while Kansas was admitted as a free state. And that was a very bloody border conflict before Kansas became a state over whether or not they might become a slave state or a free state. And there's, that's when, Jesse James time frame, that was the Quantrell's Raiders, the abolitionist Jim Brown, which was part of what launched the Civil War, was from Kansas, when he did the raid on Harper's Ferry in, I believe it was in Virginia, which was one of the things that kicked off the Civil War. So, my area has a lot of ties to, part of the eventual, Civil War and to the, the defeat of the South and the freeing of the slaves, just on general principle. But yeah, I don't expect the founding fathers to be perfect, but I don't expect us to try to erase any kind of commonality that we have as Americans.
Yeah.
And and if you don't like that, there's always the people who say, well, if you don't like it, leave the country. And then people, of course, respond, well, it's my country too, I can stay. And then I'm like, well, why don't you tell that to people who are coming to America fleeing their countries? Why don't you tell them to stay and fight for their country? So, there's a lot of hypocrisy around what the right thing to do is. But the thing is I kind of feel like if you're in a country, then you need to respect the country that you're in. And be more positive, I guess, about the possibilities of what this country allows us to do. And the fact that we are unfortunately becoming less free, I think, when you see the results of the last year and the tyranny based around the pandemic and everything else of what governments can do to us when the people or the populace don't control their government. When you become just a peasant who's being treated just like the way that the United States citizens, or well, at this point they were just English colonies, were by King George, well, then it's a problem. And that is why the 4th of July is something that I think should remain important.
As long as you're better today than you were yesterday, you're growing as a person. And if everybody is like that, soon the whole country is growing. And no matter whatever mistakes you made in the past, if you're better than that now, that shows growth, and that's important. You don't forget what you did. You don't just cover it up. You admit it, you apologize, and you try and make things right, and then you move forward.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think that there's anything wrong with discussing the flaws that a human being might have. But at the same time, if you just focus on the flaws and you don't acknowledge some of the positives they had, that's kind of wrong too. I mean, look at Abraham Lincoln, for example. His name was taken off of a school because he didn't do enough, because he treated the Native Americans bad. Yeah, but he did a lot of good things too. And it's like, where do you figure out what percentage of being good enough means you're a good person, and what percentage of things you did that weren't so great means you're a bad person?
And who gets to decide that?
Exactly. It's very subjective. So
apparently the people with the loudest voices on the internet are the only ones who can create change. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well,
and that just seems weird, right?
Well, it's either that or Molotov cocktails and black hoodies and
yeah. Well, I don't think that's the best route to go, but
I don't think it is either. But apparently,
it's good for news ratings.
It is good for news ratings, and yeah, it's just a mess. But hopefully, the 4th of July tomorrow is going to be celebrated around the United States in a good way, and a lot of people are going to have family get-togethers, get together with friends, get together with, like I said, their family, and, have some good food. And hopefully somewhere along the way, between possibly day drinking, tater salad, and fireworks, they happen to remember what the 4th of July stands for.
See, that's just it. Are most people just like, woohoo, holiday, can't wait? And they don't really care about it. They just know they have the day off and they get to light some fireworks and eat some food and get drunk. Do you think that's more important to people these days than the actual reason why they get to do that tomorrow?
I think there's definitely a set of people. I respect everybody's beliefs, but a very large group of people who I don't know that they stand for much of anything anymore in the United States. I mean,
they're happy to take the party on July 4th.
Absolutely. I mean, they might be, secular, they might be, atheists, they might not have any kind of belief in a higher power, which is fine. That's a right of an American to believe whatever you want to believe. If you want to believe in Jesus and the power of the Lord, that's perfectly right as well. If you have other beliefs, everybody's got the rights. If you want to be, I think it's a Zoroastrian, and I think they worshipped fire gods. Hey, if that's your thing, go for it. But the thing is I think most people, they just don't have any beliefs. They and this is not about religion, but it's about just, they don't have really any goals. A lot of them are just there. They just consume and go about their day, celebrate the holidays, maybe play video games, maybe spend too much time drinking, partying, and just, they don't stand for anything really. It's just, they exist and nothing really matters to them. And they're not educated about it, and they don't want to be. And that is probably what I would say is probably one of the biggest downfalls around America these days.
The ignorance is all consuming.
Yes.
So as for July 4th, what do you like? You grew up celebrating, right? Like every year was a big deal, or was it not a big deal?
Well, again, my family wasn't any more super patriotic than anybody else. I mean, we celebrated the 4th of July. We acknowledged that it was, Independence Day. I mean, we didn't have any like sit down family discussions talking about, the founding fathers or anything like this. I mean, it was basically a day off. We sometimes my dad would barbecue out and cook, and he had some certain dishes that he'd only cook once a year when we did the barbecue. And I always loved it. I mean, he made this baked potato dish where he'd slice it and put onions in it and bake it together. It was delicious. And, but we'd have a family get together, usually at my grandmother's house. Sometimes we'd have them at my house, but usually more at my grandma's.
So how many people would be at this family get together? You mentioned you, your grandma, your dad.
Well, in the 70s, of course, when all my aunts and uncles and cousins were younger, they'd still get together at my grandma's house. So usually it'd be, I'd be there, my mom and my dad, my aunt, my uncle, my other uncle, all their kids. So probably about 4 or 5 cousins plus me, and then my grandma and grandpa. And that was mostly through the 70s into the mid 80s till my grandfather passed away. And then of course, a lot of my uncles and their kids started having kids. So they started kind of branching out more into their own family, get together. So probably by the early 90s, it was pretty much down to mostly just my grandma, my aunt, me, my mom, and my dad. And that was it was pretty small. So, and I'd blow some fireworks off until they got to the point where they made it illegal in the city that she lived in. Can't blow anything up. All you can do is use sparklers and and snakes and smoke bombs and stuff like that. It wasn't like in the 70s, man. You could shoot bottle rockets off and M80s and black cats. One time, one of my favorite things, and it was super dangerous and super stupid, but it's so awesome, is my dad made a mortar. Like the military mortar for shooting bottle rockets. He was a machinist and an ace welder, so he built it. It had legs, it folded out. I mean, I still have it. It's a nice, well-built mortar for shooting bottle rockets. And we're driving around, and I'm in the back of the pickup truck, which back in the 70s you could get away with that. And we're driving through the country, and I'm just shooting bottle rockets off out of the back of a moving truck.
It sounds like you should be doing that tomorrow to celebrate.
Man, it's like, hey, it was kind of like, being overseas in some of those dangerous countries where they drive around shooting weapons out of the back of trucks. I'm driving around and
except, you're not getting shot back.
Well, yes, there is that too. But that was a fun memory one year. But usually we'd just go out and we'd have the mortar and we'd set it up somewhere kind of out in the country, and I'd shoot off, a gross or so of bottle rockets until my hands were just covered in black soot, and I smelled like a bomb factory, from all the fireworks I shot off. And and as I got older, I got tired of fireworks, and it just really wasn't my thing anymore. And then honestly, I really, mainly it's just about getting together and eating with family. That's really about the main thing that really happens for me at this point in life. So
what you're saying, tomorrow when you get up for the day, you don't have to go to work. You're not going to be shooting off fireworks. You're just going to be having a meal with close family.
Probably. I was going to go to, and I may or may not still go. A friend of mine had bought a house a couple of years ago. They'd moved to another city here in town, and they got a pool, and they're having friends get together, and food and fireworks are legal in that city. So I've got some old fireworks that I'm kind of scared to try out because they're like 8 to 10 years old. And I'm like, either they're going to just be like complete duds, or you're going to like try to light it and it's going to immediately go off because the fuses on them are so dry. It's just like, poof, So
you can't use the mortar for that.
Well, I'm gonna do what I used to do, which is I put the bottle rocket right there on the lip of it, and then I light it. When the fuse goes away, it drops, and then it shoots right away.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna have a very long punk. I'm not gonna be like holding it, like real close, because I'm not stupid, and I don't want to be known as Three Fingers Charlie Ray in the future. So you got to be pretty dumb. I mean, nothing against people who have fireworks accidents, but I've made it to 50, and I still got all my digits. And I haven't blown my pecker off either. So,
despite your dad's best efforts of throwing you in the back of a truck with a handmade mortar and saying, "Hey, launch this shit. You're 7. Go for it."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I miss the 70s, man. We really lived on borrowed time back then. And if you weren't smart, you didn't make it out of the 70s, you know.
Man, if only it was like that today. There'd be less
Oh,
cars on the road, less people on the street.
I don't know that half the people today would make it if they had to survive by 70s rules. I can tell
No,
you
there's no
what,
way.
there's not enough crying rooms for all the tears of sadness from the
Yeah.
bullying back in the 70s,
Yeah.
these people today don't know what it's like trying to walk home 2 miles and duck gangs of people who just want to randomly beat your ass for the color of your skin. So until you do, you got no place to talk about being triggered to me. So, hey, whatever. I know I'll survive if the zombie wars happen, and they won't. So
I'm not doing anything for the Independence Day tomorrow because living in Canada and being a Canadian, I don't have that. We have our July 1st, which is a couple of days ago, and I spent the day working as usual.
right.
And I think that comes down to I grew up in a town where it was like super touristy. So every long weekend, the town would be packed, the hotels would be full, the marinas would be full. All the people from Vancouver area and Alberta would come out to party at like the warmest place in Canada. So, and being in that town, that was like a busy time to work. So I worked literally every long weekend from May through August, pretty much from the ages of like 13 to 20. So something instilled in me that it's a long weekend, just work. Unless you have
Right.
actually something you're going to go do, just work. So if you don't have plans and you just go, oh, I need the day off because I need to celebrate my independence. Like, I love the country I live in. I don't need to have a special day of the year to celebrate it. Things are a little bit different this year in Canada. I don't know if you get the news down there about it, but we've had, I think, 3 schools, like unmarked graves. Have you heard about the residential schools?
About the Indigenous children
Yeah.
situation. Yeah, I have.
So you do hear that. You do get that kind of news.
It's not exactly the biggest headlines, but yeah,
Yeah.
we see that.
I don't know I can't even fathom the idea that they've only like searched 3 school grounds and found over 1,300 bodies.
That's
And they said
terrible.
there was over 100 of those schools in the country within the last 100 years.
Wow.
So, I mean, if you're doing the math, you don't want to do the math.
No, you
So
cannot.
those are all recent discoveries within like 2 weeks before our Independence Day. So nobody I knew actually did anything at all celebratory for this country a couple days ago.
Wow.
They all took the day off. They're like, nope, I'm gonna post some stuff on Facebook about the color orange. I'm gonna celebrate not Canada Day, but I'm gonna celebrate the people who gave their lives for no reason to a country that didn't treat them very fair. So it's super somber out here, but things are different. A couple of years ago, when I was living close to a border town, I grew up right on the border of the Canada and the US for the first like 20 years of my life. And there was a stretch there when I lived in the Vancouver area and I was right on the border. And we would go on July 4th because it wasn't a holiday for me. I was able to get it off easily, right? Nobody booked it off because nobody
Right.
celebrated it. So
Right.
I didn't book off July 1st. I always worked it because I got paid time and a half and everybody else wanted to have it off to go celebrate. But I booked off July 4th so that I could get in my car and drive down to the US
Right.
and watch you guys celebrate. So there's a little town called Birch Bay outside Bellingham. Well, I don't know, maybe 60 miles from Abbotsford off the top of my head, I think. And
Yeah.
we would go there and it's Birch Bay. It's the Pacific Ocean. It's a little tiny cove, little tiny villages, little tiny houses, cottages on one side of the street. And then on the other side of the street, it's all beach and ocean. So there's little ice cream stands and stuff, but we would go there, we would park, and it was just like a train of cars and people shooting, like you said, bottle rockets from their cars.
Oh, yeah.
All the families would be in their lawn chairs, having barbecues on the beach. Everybody, every little kid would be shooting off fireworks. There's kids running around the age 2 years old, blowing off firecrackers in their hands. And I was just like, my mom would have like not even let me. I mean, even as a grown man, my mom would not let me near fireworks. I can't imagine letting my 3-year-old run around with like firecrackers and stuff and then blown off in their hands. Like there was kids yelling and screaming and dad saying, "Oh, you idiot, why are you still holding on to it, you moron?" I was like, why would you give your 3-year-old a firework and expect them to know what to do? They're 3. But I mean, they're celebrating, and that was the main thing down there, is watching all the Americans celebrate, and they did.
Well, our independence was definitely born on the back of a gun, and explosions and blowing stuff up has been an American tradition since 1776.
Well, that's true.
So we break them in early. Here you go. You're 3. if you can crawl, you can throw a black cat.
I remember being,
you know,
on a road trip when I lived in that area. I was with my friends Ugly Ben and Weber, and we were just driving through, heading back from California, I think, and we were in southern Washington, and we saw a bunch of fireworks stands, and it was like discount fireworks, because July 4th was the day before. So they're just trying to unload their stock and their little makeshift. Yeah. It's like they open up a portable building on the side of the highway, just on an off ramp. And my friends were like, "Oh man, let's go buy some fireworks." And I was like, "Sure, why not?" And they dropped, hundreds of dollars on all these fireworks. I was like, "Well, we can't take them across the border, so you guys have to shoot them all off in the next 3 hours." So we just pulled up a dirt road, pulled off to the side, and they just sat there for like 45 minutes lighting and shooting off fireworks into the sky. And I just sat there like, wow, you guys spent so much money for, 45 minutes worth of enjoyment. But to their credit, it's like 20 years later and I'm still telling the story. So it clearly stuck with me.
And not only that, they got more of them for their money than they would have gotten before the 4th of July.
Yeah. If they showed up the day before, they would have paid double, right?
Yeah, well, they would have paid double, or they would have basically got half as much stuff. Yeah. And the day after 4th of July, it's like, buy a bag, $5. Take this crap. We can't store it. I mean, it's got to go. So yes.
Fireworks in Canada, they're hard to come by. There's not a lot of places that sell fireworks. Occasionally, in small towns, you'll see a sign that says, "Ooh, fireworks, next stop." You're like, "Oh, that's cool." But in the States, I remember going on a road trip through Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Tennessee, like in that whole area. And I went up to an exit because I needed to get some gas. And as I pull over the exit, I see a sign that says "World's Largest Fireworks Store." And I look over and it was like a Costco-sized building. And I was like, what? Like, that's a business? Like, just that real estate alone to pay for that, you must be selling a lot of fireworks, like in the middle of nowhere in a highway in Alabama, like the middle of nothing. I just found it so odd that this is like a business plan. Somebody like said, "Well, I want to open up the world's largest fireworks store," and the people at the bank were like, "Hell yeah, this is America, do it."
Yeah, well, let's make it rain on that loan.
Yeah, so they just like loan them all the money to buy this Costco-sized building and then stock it full of fireworks. I was like, do people they must stop there and buy them? There's nothing else on the highway for hundreds of kilometers. Like, this is so weird to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they'll back my plan for the world's largest brothel. I mean, you never know. It could be a winning plan.
Well, if there's enough snowflakes out there that the fireworks place will get shut down after enough kids blow off their fingers, and then that real estate will be pretty cheap. You can open up the brothel there. It's already got the building.
Man, it should be. I can't think of what would go with hose and explosions, but I mean, get more bang for your buck one way or the other. I don't know.
See, that would work.
Get banged more ways than you can count. I don't know. I mean, there's so many things that you could write on a joke for a combination brothel and fireworks.
And you got to have a diner. I mean, you got to have like apple pie. It's so American.
I'll probably have to carry those IKEA Swedish meatballs because I mean, why not? I don't know that. Fireworks are an American tradition, and where I'm at, even as much as fireworks are big around here, they are nothing compared to many other places in the United States, especially the South. I mean, they just come on. These are states where they actually do a documentary about people who go out and hunt gators. I mean, come on.
I guess, I was in Alabama. That's down there as well. Yeah, so that makes sense that fireworks store would have been on that stretch of highway.
Yeah, I mean, some of the people down there do fishing with dynamite, it's more efficient, I mean, I don't know what Kansas is pretty much at this point, it's just no farm. That's about it. I mean, we're not like the badass Kansas of 1850. So I don't know.
Nobody's the badass they were in 1950 though.
Oh, that's true.
The whole world's gone soft.
Oh man.
Maybe not North Korea, maybe not Russia.
Yeah, probably not. So let me ask you this. Yeah. I mean, since I don't know much about Canadian history, I mean, how exactly did Canada get its independence? And I mean, did they basically say, hey, can we be our own country now? And then they were like, okay, sure. I mean, you didn't have to fight them off, did you?
But it's not even really its own country because our money still has pictures of the Queen and stuff on it, right? We're a Commonwealth. So somewhere up the chain, the Queen is still in charge. So we didn't win any freedom, but the people here, I think it cost too much. So the people in England were just like, it's costing too much for us to try and maintain everything. So how about we just let them govern their own shit, and then we make a bunch of rules at the top that they follow, and we'll call it a day. So it's like it's like buying a business and you buy a smaller business and you let somebody else run it. That's essentially what they did.
So basically, they sublet the land.
Well, I mean, it wasn't their land. They took the
That's
land
true.
from the First Nations people. You know, just like America, same thing,
Yeah,
right? You come in, it's you take the land, and they called it, Canada.
right. Well, unfortunately, I think every land that's owned by somebody now was somebody else's at some point in time.
Absolutely,
So,
except for Africa. I would bet you those people, it was theirs,
well,
and it's still theirs after failed attempts by England to, colonize all of it.
depends. I mean, yeah, but they've been fighting amongst themselves too. It's kind of a common theme of humanity. We kill each other, and that's a sad thing.
Oh, it's terrible.
I'm much more of a make love, not war kind of guy. So
I'm with you. I mean, not with other dudes, but I'm with you.
Yeah.
Unless the price is right, I could always use a couple, more dollars.
Well, yeah. Well,
so, like $8, maybe 15.
You're cheaper than I thought.
Am I selling myself too short there?
I don't know, man.
Should I hold out?
Considering what we're selling things for on eBay right now, you might be able to get a little bit more. So
yeah, I should probably, think of myself to be worth a little bit more than that.
I mean, it is that prime Canadian booty. So
yeah, that's true.
Oh man, so you really like to enjoy watching the U.S. people just completely go nuts on the 4th of July.
Yeah, it's I don't experience that. I always spent every July 1st working, so I never got to have the celebrations. But we don't really do a lot of. We shoot some fireworks off, and the cities and the towns I lived in, they always did like a fireworks display at a town hall kind of thing or a park, and they would have like face painting, typical celebration, face painting, kids, hot dogs, barbecue, the typical stuff you would do. But America takes it to another level, and the fireworks it's just another level. And another thing down in the States, the month prior to July 4th, I'm usually down in the States. Obviously this year due to pandemic, I'm not able to go down. And last year due to pandemic, I wasn't able to go down. But one of my favorite things is to go shopping to see all the, and I'm here with air quotes, limited edition products, which is essentially taking whatever the product is and slapping the colors red, white, and blue on it. So it'll be like limited edition America Twinkies, red, white, and blue like dyes on it. Limited edition Krispy Kreme donuts, red, white, and blue sprinkles on it. Limited edition Smirnoff Ice, red, white, and blue. Limited edition M&Ms, just red, white, and blue. Limited edition Rice Krispies, red, white, and blue Krispies. So I always got off picking up all the American, with air quotes again, limited edition stuff, and they didn't do anything special. They just slapped 3 fucking colors on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess they did that this year. I don't go shopping very much, but for some reason I feel like there wasn't as much of that this year as there has been in the past. The whole celebration of what it's meant to be an American for so long is just really being pushed aside by a lot of corporations and by certain people in the government and by certain amounts of the population of the United States. They really, I mean, there's a group, I would say, in the United States who would like us not to celebrate the 4th of July at all. And that seems completely ridiculous to me. Yeah. I mean, if you believe so much that this country, you can't celebrate the independence of this, then maybe you should decide to go somewhere better. If you feel that you have a better country you can get treated better in, and maybe you can. I don't say that you can't. Maybe you can. If so, maybe you should try living there for a while. And so that's the thing I say to people. If you feel like there's another country that you'd rather go to than here, maybe they will treat you better. Maybe they will be better for you. But I also find it hard for most of these people who say these kind of things. They've never left the United States. Both you and me have done, fairly extensive travel. I've visited some odd places. I mean, I've visited Azerbaijan. Most people don't even know where that's at, and it's north of Iran, and it's bordered by Georgia, Armenia, and Iran, and the Caspian Sea. It's a secular Muslim country, and I visited there while the Iraq War was going on. So not too far away from where I was at, there was active warfare going on, and it's a very, very different world when you actually put foot on somebody else's land and you see the way they live, and then you compare it to where you're from, and then you kind of go, well, yeah, you know what, we do have problems, but there are problems and we'll solve them.
Yeah.
And things aren't necessarily always better somewhere else. For example, they had awesome bread over there. But do I want to probably live in Azerbaijan because they got awesome bread? No, probably not.
Well, absolutely not, because after you eat the bread, you got to use the toilet, and I already heard about the toilet paper there.
Yeah, yes, the toilet paper in Azerbaijan, especially the airport, was the worst toilet paper I've ever experienced in my life. It was literally like just slightly above that pressed wood you can buy at like Home Depot or Lowe's. Like, where you actually see the chunks of wood in it, like the texture. It was amazing. I wish I had an example of it. It was so horrible.
So no matter what, the bread is delicious, but it's not worth the aftermath.
Yeah. But you know what? It was a beautiful country, and many of the people over there, they're very hospitable. They're very, a lot of women are very beautiful over there. They, definitely have the somewhat Persian look. I mean, because they're very close to Iran, which is, formerly Persia. Lots, olive skin, lots of, black hair, black eyes, very, very, very beautiful.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the point that I'm trying to make with all this, though, is between, like my trip there, I've been to China, I've been to, Estonia and Switzerland and Germany and England. And, whether it's like a more of a third world country or a second world country or a first world country, you really get a different flavor for what it's like as an American when you visit these other places. And I look forward to spending more time in those places, as we've talked about. And really getting to see more of what it's all about. And so for the people who are like, I hate America, or America sucks and I don't want to be here and I want to destroy everything, if you haven't maybe actually gone and visited somewhere else and all you have is just your viewpoint, you're kind of looking in a mirror and you're talking without understanding a lot of things.
Well, a viewpoint without experience isn't a viewpoint. It's just an asshole opinion. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You need the experience to have the better viewpoint and a better opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and whether it's, whether it's an Asian or an African American or whatever, and they decide and they say, well, based on my experience growing up, America is horrible. Okay. I can understand that. I don't have.
Yeah, you can get behind that 100%.
Yeah, I don't have your viewpoint growing up. I don't know what it's like. I do know that just for the simple color of my skin, I had to duck walking home a couple miles from roving gangs that tried to kick my butt for no reason. And it was extremely challenging, and I didn't understand it.
Let's rephrase that. It's not like they try to kick your butt for no reason.
No.
To kick your butt personally for no reason.
Color of my skin.
Yes, yeah. But for the oppression that they or their ancestors had to go through, right?
Right.
Your color was what caused their anguish.
Yes, but
did you understand that back then?
Of course not. I was 10 years old. I came from an elementary school where I was friends with everybody. I hung out with white kids. I hung out with black kids. I hung out with Hispanic children. I was friends with the only Asian children that was in the school, which was a Korean family that lived right across from the school. And I was friends with John, who was the son, and then his sister, who I can't remember her name right now, but they were the only Asians in the school. I mean, this is 1975, 1976. America was much different demographically back then. And so I was friends with everybody. I had sleepovers over at my friend Don Zell's house, and I experienced a different culture, and it was okay because you know what? We were just friends. My whole perspective when I was a kid is that I looked at everybody as an American first. Did I see, these people who say I don't see color? That's impossible. You see color because it's part of the spectrum of light. You see it.
How great would it be if we could all go back to the mentality that we had as children?
Oh, it would be so great. I mean, and honestly, when I was in elementary school, I got into more fights with white kids than anybody else. It wasn't until I went to a little bit older age to where I got exposed to people who didn't know me that I had to worry about these kind of things. And I didn't understand it. I was completely lost. I'm like, I don't know why people are trying to attack me at that point, I mean, it's basically, I'd say no reason, but obviously there was a reason. I was white. It was just that I was white. And so, do you ask me, has that colored my opinion of people? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't say that it hasn't, but up to that point, I was much more bias free. And I think unless you come from a family that's very racist. And you'll see, like on Jerry Springer, like, I raised my kids as, in the hate, people.
Yeah.
Unless you come from a family like that, I think most children are pretty bias free. I mean, they're friends with kids because they want to be friends with the kid.
If you just want to play, you just want to play, and you don't care who it is. You just want to play.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter anything that those kind of things that people worry about. It's mainly just, is the kid cool to play with, or is he an asshole, or is she an asshole? If they're an asshole, then it doesn't matter if they're your twin. You don't want to play with them because they're an asshole, and so, yeah, I miss the feelings that I had during the 70s. And I miss how I feel like the 70s, when it turned into the 80s, turned into a lot of division. And I do feel like in some points, a lot of things happened that started pushing the division that we see in the United States today. I don't want to get too much into all the problems that we have. Like I said,
that's another completely another episode.
Yeah,
we're gonna stick to
4th of July.
Celebrate July 4th. The differences between you celebrating now versus you celebrating as a child. The difference of me not celebrating my independence as much as I enjoyed watching Americans celebrate their independence. To me, that's just weird. I mean, I love my country. I love being part of it. I think, honestly, like, no offense to you and where you grew up, I honestly think this country here is more superior when it comes to day-to-day life and appreciation, acceptance of others. And on a global scale, we're more appreciated as a country because, we don't have like you said, that your country's born out of, war and guns and stuff. So you have to be, if that's how your country is created, you got to keep with that outlook. People see you as that. You can never go soft at that point. You know what I mean?
Well,
and it's tough. America can't go soft because then they're no longer the country that they started off being by being tough. So unfortunately, that leads to shitty opinions that people have of people in your country all over the world. Like, when I travel living in a foreign country, I make sure that when somebody says, "Oh, you're from America," I was like, I'm Canadian. I mean, I love Americans. I love America. I really do. I go there every chance I get. I love so many things about it. I've never really had a bad experience at all, but I don't want them thinking I'm American because somebody out there just fucking doesn't like them. You know what I mean? And I don't want to be, like you said, scared to walk somewhere because somebody thinks I'm something that I didn't know I was.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, I do apologize if that offended you. Just say
no,
that I think my country is.
The thing is this, again, despite the fact that I do think as a country we should celebrate the things that at one point were used to pull us together, to unify us. I mean, the understanding of the Constitution, the understanding of our rights, the celebration of our Independence Day, the Star Spangled Banner, all these things that they've tried to take away from people. It takes away any commonality. How do you have a country that has any sort of cohesion if you completely destroy any concept of what cohesion is? Again, I don't think that necessarily America is the greatest country in the world. Not all the time. At times we may have been. At times,
absolutely.
and at some point we may be again. But the thing is that I don't think that we need to be the greatest in the world. We need to be the best at being Americans, and that's all we need to worry about. We don't need to worry about if we're better than somebody else. We should worry about who we are as a country. But the problem I have is the fact that a lot of people in this country are actively trying to destroy what America is and to make it stand for nothing. And for me, that's a problem. I do wish that some of the things that we stood for would change a little bit or soften. I don't know. I've never thought for a long time that we need to be the world's policeman. We've been the world's policeman forever. And you know what? We need to just stay out of some people's crap, and that's okay.
I mean, to be a self-imposed policeman is kind of a dickhead move. You know what I mean?
It is. I agree with that. But on the other hand, it's kind of like
sometimes you need the big brother to protect the little brother.
Well, it's to walk softly and carry a big stick that Theodore Roosevelt advocated for. I think we should probably, stick more to ourselves. I think we need to be more self-sufficient. I have a big problem with the fact that we've outsourced almost all of our manufacturing to China. I think that is really, really stupid. And then, in fact, I think that most of the politicians for the 90s, many of them are traitors to our country. But I also feel that way about many of the people who ran businesses back then. We sold out the American people for the almighty dollar. But then again, when it comes to America, what's more American than selling people out for the more American, for more dollars? And instead of doing what was right for America, everybody became about what was, right for themselves in the country. But again, that's, I just think that the 4th of July needs to stay an important holiday, and it still needs to be something that, whether you have problems with the founding fathers or if you don't have problems with the founding fathers, you do need to acknowledge that as flawed human beings, they've given you the system that allows you to bitch about them now. Because a lot of countries, guess what? You start bitching too much, you just disappear in the middle of the night. And while that may happen a little bit in the U.S. as well, and I'm not going to touch on those subjects, it hasn't happened as much. Either that or they just basically consider us free-range humans and we're all living in cells. We just don't know it.
No, that's the good thing about both of our countries is the freedom to, you could, if, let's say, President Biden walked down the street with his entourage or his security, and you said, hey, Biden, go fuck yourself. They really couldn't do anything about it. And that's pretty powerful words to a pretty powerful man. And to get away with it, that's a pretty fucking awesome country.
Yes. Right? I don't think if you said that to Saddam Hussein when he walked by, you'd still be breathing.
Exactly. So like, we both live in a country that's very fortunate to be able to speak our mind, even be as derogatory as possible to the leader of the country. And they'd pretty much they'd be pissed off, but they couldn't really legally do anything about it.
Well, in Biden's case, I'm not sure he'd understand what I said anyway. So
no, he'd probably, it's fine. I mean, you could even, whatever president it was,
I know,
you'd be able to get away with it. You know what I mean?
I'm just joshing.
It's a pretty perfect crime.
Yeah,
and it's due to the freedoms of our countries.
Exactly,
and that's what you need to celebrate.
Yeah, I think we need to celebrate. I think this 4th of July, I hope tomorrow is celebrated by many people and they have a great time with their family and they blow a lot of crap up and they celebrate getting through this pandemic that we've had, and they get together with family because, I worry that all of a sudden this fall it's going to be, wave 4 and more lockdowns and this, and we're not going to be able to have people to get together. And what do? I mean, you are at the mercy of those who have the weapons and the laws. And, I won't, say, it's your country. Obviously, I pay attention to some of what's going on. I mean, you have a very lockdown happy government, it seems like, up there,
It's just a power tripping young dude that's terrified of losing the grip he has.
Yeah.
But that's okay for right now because other countries are still quarantining us when we travel. So until I have freedom to travel to other countries, I'm not going to worry about the quarantine in my country. So I know it's not just here, it's other places as well. And you know what? If it makes people safer, I'll give it another couple months, but I don't want to get into it, honestly. No.
I mean, I'm happy. You know what? I go to work. I can go grocery shopping. I can do my things. I don't get to have all the fun that I'd like to be having.
Yeah.
Concerts are starting to come back a little bit, although my love for them is actually just kind of dried up a little bit.
It's kind of weird. It's weird when you don't get to do the things you love doing. It sort of just dissipates from your heart.
Yeah.
You're like, well, that was cool, but maybe I'm over it.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of like muscles. Like if you don't work out, your muscles just kind of go away. They just kind of fade away. And
I was sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and going to concerts and staying up late was like a muscle that I worked out. I mean, I was going out sometimes 3-4 concerts in a week. I mean, it was crazy. And now it's like I go 3 to 4 months between actually seeing a live event. And I just feel like I don't really care anymore. I'm more concerned with, the things that we talked about, like, hey, I want to find a beach, and hey, I want to just, maybe, it's also my age, and I just want to find that sense of contentment and have some happiness and have some joy. And, like today driving around, traffic was horrible. I'm just sitting there thinking, God, I really don't want to live in a city with all this traffic and just watching people drive like idiots. And I'm just like, I don't want that. I want, people complain like, oh, I go to, blank country in South America and everything's just slow. They have that whole culture of mañana, it'll get done when it gets done. And it's like, you know what, maybe you should slow down and learn a little patience. I mean, things still get done. They get done at a slower pace. We're just super anal retentive, and we're just like, get things done, you know, and it's like, and no one ever, but the thing is the sad thing I feel like about Americans is we focus on our to-do list all the time. And we focus on all the things that we need to get done. And we never step back enough and really smell the roses. We never step back and look at like, oh, look at all the things I accomplished. Because as soon as something's knocked off the to-do list, it's just gone. You know, you have this to-do list, it's never ending, you know. And I'm like, well, what about having a to-done list where you look at your list and you go, wow, look at all these things I accomplished. And then every once in a while you can just go, wow, I got a lot done. I sold a whole box of GI Joes for $4,000. You know, I mean, I shift my perspective on what's important to me. And the thing is if all you focus on is always what's on your to-do list, you're never satisfied because that list never ends.
I think Ferris Bueller said it best. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Exactly. Yeah. Wise man, Ferris Bueller.
Wise man.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to wrap this up here, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your celebration the next time we chat.
Absolutely.
And you can tell me if it's as great as you would hoped it was, or if it was as bad as you'd hoped it wouldn't be.
Well, as long as I come back from it with all my appendages, it'll be a success.
I tell you, man, bring out the mortar, bring it, surprise the shit out of the people that you're sitting down with. They're like, what the hell is that? And then you can get into the whole spiel of the story about how your dad built it.
Yeah, and I didn't tell you that he had a mount that was actually, you could specifically mount to the edge of the truck, so you had like you could aim it, like tilt it and everything.
Oh, nice.
My dad was a genius, you know. Yeah,
my dad was an alcoholic. He probably built something to hold his drinks in his car while he was driving. He probably had something like that, but didn't have any cool firework launching mortar machine. Let me tell you that.
Well, my dad was an alcoholic too, and probably while we were driving around shooting those off, he probably had a Budweiser in his hand as well as a Winston.
Like you said, It was the 70s, and it was a lot different.
Yeah, you took your life in your own hands, and if you survived it, well, everything was all right.
That's right. All right, man. It's been a good chat. It's nice to hear a perspective from an American about their July 4th celebration, because I've never actually sat and talked to anybody about it. I just used to enjoy the celebration myself as a bystander, just a voyeur, if you will.
All right. Well, thanks, Mr. Clay. As always, I enjoy talking about myself and or my country.
and a great country it is. And if I was there, I'd be celebrating with you. Tater salad, fireworks,
barbecue.
I'm happy with that shit.
Yeah.
And if it means I get to say, hey, happy birthday, the country I'm living in, that's just an added bonus to all that delicious food and friendship.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Answers for Everything. And Mr. Clay?
I don't think we answered anything, though.
Well, no. We answered my opinion on what I think about America, probably. That's about it.
So we probably shouldn't release this episode in America, because you might, have to still hide on your way walking home from work at school now.
Perhaps, if they can figure out who Charlie Ray is. Thanks again for tuning in to Mr. Clay and Charlie Ray. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and some of our thoughts about what the 4th of July means to us as both an American and as a Canadian.
That's correct. Peace out, Noodles.
Peace out.